Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another weekly episode of the Unfiltered, Uncensored, and Unapologetically Black podcast show, Speak to the Mic. I am your illustrious host, Marlon Joseph. And here on this show, ladies and gentlemen, you already know the drill. We like to do three things on the show. We like to provide useful and helpful content to the Black community, talk to Black men and women of all professions, industries, and organizations about the work that they're doing, and also give thanks and acknowledgments to those Black men and women who are using their positions of power, platforms, and professions in a more positive way to help move the culture forward in a more positive way. Joining me today is a very intriguing and very intelligent Black woman who is an author, mother, wife, a relationship coach who specializes in blended family dynamics. And here to talk with me about a healthy dynamic within the Black family, Mrs. Nicole Odom-Hardnett. Nicole, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day to be on the show with me to talk about this. Many topics on this show are mainly specifically aimed to our Black community, but also can be trickled down to other communities as well. But the primary reason for this show is for us to get information out to us for people who look like us, so we can have a better life in a more positive way, and even help trickle down those positive attributes to our future generations thereafter. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Make sure you let me know in the comments, and as well as when subscribing on Spotify and all other podcast platforms. Be sure to not only subscribe to it, let me know what you think about previous episodes of this show as I continuously move forward with growing my content and obviously reaching out to more and more people to interview. Your thoughts and your opinions matter more to me than you would like to think. Again, Nicole, thank you so much for being on this show to talk about this. This is a multifaceted topic, specifically when it comes to the healthy dynamic of the Black family. So for you, I want to just jump right in there and ask, what are some of the ways that we collectively, when it comes to the Black family, what ways can we identify some unhealthy ways of mixing and mingling with our families in the Black community?
Well, first and foremost, Marlon, thank you so much for the invitation. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. There are so many unhealthy things going on in the Black family, and there have been for probably centuries or decades. Of course, we, have not always been the full family unit of, two-parent homes. It's typically, one parent, either the mom, typically just the mom in the household, but sometimes we have those single dads that step up to the plate and are raising the kids nowadays. I've seen a lot of that. So there's a lot of that going on. And, when we had that back in, my day, usually the community supported that family. But now we don't have that anymore. It's just that mom or that dad, and that's it. It's just them alone. And if they have some other family members to help support, then they have the family members. It's no longer the community involved. So it makes things a lot more difficult. So there's not the next door neighbor telling on you anymore. And when you come home, you get, in trouble.
Yep.
So it's no longer the community raising the kids. So things have definitely changed. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever go back to that, because it's so much other stuff going on out here in the world. When I say other stuff, this mental health is on the rise. So you don't know who is around the corner trying to prey on your kids nowadays, or if that next door neighbor is the one that's actually preying on your kids, waiting to put them in the van. So we have to be extra careful when we ask Mr. Jimmy now, can you keep an eye on my kids?
Yep.
we can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
So
and that's so unfortunate too. And it's funny you say that because the one thing that always strikes me in a way when it comes to the community is that I break down the word community as coming together in unity, right? So to your point, there used to be a point in time where it took a village to raise a child or the children of that community, right? You expected and you saw that the adults were the ones manning the helm, if you will, when it came to those community leaders. And it was less focused on what politicians were doing, but more so specifically what those parents were doing in-house, the way that they were parenting their children and the way the children, next door were being parented too. It's like, listen, I know your mother, and don't be acting the fool and things like that. So,
exactly. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that doesn't exist anymore is so alarming that now you can't talk to my child because of X, Y, and Z, but you automatically assume your child is right just because they're your child. And it's that unhealthiness trickles down to other children. It trickles down to influencing other kids in other houses in that community.
And then it goes into the school. And it makes it harder for the teachers to teach your children. And now the schools are getting away with not teaching your children. And now they're passing your children. Your children don't know shit.
That's
don't know nothing. They can't read.
No child left behind.
And all of this is starting because we don't have this community. That it's a whole trickle down effect because we have lost community.
Yeah.
We can't trust one another anymore. All of this is gone out the window because we are like a whole new. This is the new world.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of world this is.
World. Yeah, it is. But my question to that, in regards to that though, what would you say from your perspective was what's one of the causes, right? So we know everything that happens to us is multifaceted. There's no one solution to every problem. There's no one problem that just, basically where we drop the ball at, right? So what was, to your point, or from your perspective, what was the one thing that you can think of that may have caused, that ripple effect when it came down to now it's not the village anymore. It's just this one parent or these two parents raising these children, and that's it. Now I'm gonna keep this in house, and we're gonna do how we do things here, and why everybody else do things there. What has happened over the years that has caused this?
I mean, there's a number of things. I don't know if I could just pop off just one thing.
Yeah.
I would probably start with no communication in the home. The music has just gone completely wild. We got away from probably going to church, eating dinner together. It's a number of things that have just gone completely to the left.
Yeah.
And it's no turning back. And the kids are allowed to see and be involved in too much.
Great.
Now, back in the day when your parents fought or had an argument with Aunt Betty, you shut the door and you say, stay out of grown folks' business. Yep. Now the kids sitting right there and they arguing Aunt Betty too.
Now they're within arm reach, right. having adult conversations in their children, right? So, and it's funny you say that too, because one of my aunts, I love my auntie to death. She made it clear whenever my cousins and I came to the house, when adults was in the kitchen talking, arguing, laughing, whatever, you stay at a grown folks' business. If you within arm reach of her, you too close.
Right.
And a few times before then, I'm having like family gatherings over my aunt's house, and then I would be one of those ones who would tell the rest of my cousins, "Hey man, hey auntie said don't go in there, man. Just listen. Let the grown folks be the grown folks, and we kids we play up in here."
Right.
And one of them had to go find out the hard way. Came back out crying. I was just like, "Listen,
you got that right."
I told him not to go in there. But that's the thing though. That respect level was there. It was established and understood, right? Yes. So, and I would definitely say too, to the point, obviously knowing that this is a multifaceted situation, one of those things, one of those problems that's been problematic consistently is that level of respect that's given to the elders of the family, given to the parents, given to older relatives too, who by far they deserve that respect from the younger generation of family members, right? But you have situations where if a parent is disagreeing with another relative, then automatically by default that child is involved in it too, when the two adults should be the ones handling that. That has nothing to do with the children. Children didn't have anything to do with the situation escalating to where it was or where it wasn't. And if that was the case, then it was handled a certain way. But even still, I mean, it has drastically changed for the worse, and it's unfortunate. But I'm always hopeful and optimistic that we can get back, not even necessarily get back to that, but get back to a place where we're resustaining and reestablishing ourselves when it comes to that respect level, having those very small, intricate things that still mean a lot. Like you said, having dinner at the dinner table, talking about what issues of the day have happened to them, and being able to allow our children to have a voice too. Because a lot of times too, and this is no knock to my mother's generation and past generations, but a lot of times those older generations, parents would sit up and tell the kids that they can't say anything. They have to just listen all the time. It's like, but that time doesn't exist anymore. Now that particular piece is very important too, because our children have voices as well. And we have to be able to give them that avenue and that opportunity to voice their thoughts on things that's pertaining to their lives. If we're not doing that, then we're doing a disservice to them as parents.
That's true. There has to be a balance between the old and the new generation. Yep. In my household, we sit and have dinner and we have a conversation about what's going on. The kids are allowed to have an opinion, but okay, you're only going to take that but so far, because you've learned to respect your elders.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that respect has to be taught. It's a skill to that. When the kids are growing up, you can't just wait until they're 10 or 7. It has to be taught when they're very young, early on. That's right. Because it's children out here. I see some teenagers out here that when an elderly person, they're walking down the street, they step to the side, or they ask can they help them with their bag. But there are some that they expect the older person to step to the side, and I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. What? Are they raised by wolves? Like, what happened? Or, they could have been taught the right way and they just choose to do differently.
Yeah. Now, there are some outliers.
There are some,
that choose to just dare to be different for the wrong reasons.
That's right.
Because
that is
they have
so
outside
true.
influences too. They have other kids who are not being raised the same way they're being raised, under the same principles and values that they're being bestowed upon. So it's like, you know what? Well, my friend here doesn't do that in his house, so I should not have to do that. So they easily influence in that way. And so unfortunately, it trickles down to that. But one thing specifically I want to also talk about too is that when it comes to the in-house specifically, you have the mother, the father, the children, right? So a lot of times I get flack for, labeling people in places and knowing their place and knowing their positions within the family. But without understanding exactly what I mean based on context. So I always have to break this down. So obviously, a mother has a place, father has a place, the children have places too. When one person steps out of place, that gives the other people the opportunity to have to step in that place along with stepping in their own place. So if there's no father in the home, the mother has to step one foot in the father's position and the other foot to remain in her own position, which leaves the children to have to step in a adult position, 1 foot in and then 1 foot out as a child too, which basically strips them of the innocence of just being a mere child. And they're having to grow up too fast and given too many responsibilities entirely too quickly in their lives, when they should just be living carefree. The only priority they should have is their education, nothing else. They shouldn't be be put in positions to have to pay bills and have to help take care of the family or have to raise other siblings too. But a lot of that has been problematic within the Black community. But most of the time, people would say and agree that that's because of the impoverished environments that we have grown up in over the years. And so for you specifically, what would you say when it comes to the idea of everyone knowing what their place is within that Black family? Like, is there a particular place for a mother and the woman, father and the husband and the children? Are there places when it comes to that?
There are children should be children.
Yes.
And I'm saying a woman can be a woman. Now, when you say places, I'm a little thrown off by that.
Okay. So let me break it down. Right. So obviously understanding the way things have been established, like the man and the woman got together, they got married, had a family. So that family structure, obviously, it was within that dynamic, right? So not necessarily want to bring biblical terms in this, but you say, okay, my grandfather used to always say this, and my grandmother said, it's God, man, woman, child, right? So everyone understands what their roles are. I won't say place, I'll say roles. If that makes it better to say it that way, right? Because again, sometimes people do get thrown off when saying place, but when I say place, it's not in the sense of being.
Even in the sense of role in this day and time.
In this day and time.
Because we are, my husband and I, we are partners.
Absolutely.
That's how, and I get it.
Yeah.
But we do play roles. Yes, you are absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
We all have our strong points. As the adults in the relationships, children should be children. They should stay in their places as children. They should not step into the adult
exactly what I'm saying.
in adult situations, no matter if there are two adults in the home or not, because they are not equipped mentally nor physically to play the role of the adult. And nor should they be expected to.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to cover that because I haven't always had a man in the house with me.
Yeah.
So my husband and I, I have things that I'm good at in the relationship. He has things that he's good at in the relationship, and we balance each other out. Where one may fall short, another picks the other up, and vice versa.
Absolutely,
and that's how it should work. But in our relationships, unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. One person, sometimes always stays up, and the other one stays down.
Yeah. That's a very unhealthy relationship to be in, especially long term, because more things are going to trickle down from that.
Yes, and that's when sometimes those kids have to quote unquote man up and they step into the adult role because they're forced to, and then you have two adults in the house, and then that creates a problem. And because typically then you have somebody talking down to that other adult, and that those children, they see that, and that turns into their relationship, and they're talking down or abusing someone else, and so on and so forth, and that goes into that later on in life.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly what I was describing when it comes to roles. It's something you as a wife, you specialize in. Your areas of expertise you're better at than your husband, vice versa. Right? So it does balance it out. And that's the same way for me and my wife too. So I have a daughter and a son, and we obviously, certain things that I'm better at than she is, some things that she's better at than I am, but we help balance each other out and bring different perspectives to each other, so that way we can say to ourselves and to each other, hey, you know what, I ain't thinking about it like that, but let me approach things that exact way and see if I can get the same results that you've gotten, because that seems to be working for you. And again, that helps create and sustain a healthy relationship within that Black family, which is something that's not commonly being exposed or even just experienced for most children in our Black community. So, and I can say for me personally, only having just my mom for the vast majority of my life, my mom had a boyfriend who she wasn't married to for many, many years, who was a stepfather to me, not necessarily my father. My father didn't really know much about the guy until his, I knew more about him when he passed away than I did know about him when he was alive. He says a lot. I didn't even know this man had a middle name. But until I got to the funeral, it's just, and so there's a few things that I knew about him in times when I was a child, being around him a few times, but it was never really a very healthy or organic relationship that we formed. So many years, I had to find my way as a man to understand what my place is in this world, what my role is when that time comes to become a husband, to become a father. Still learning, because I'm still young in these type of roles at this very moment in time. So understanding that my existence here is very much so essential to the growth and development of my children and to the healthy dynamic that my wife and I share when it comes down to being that first example to our children. And that's the way it should be sustainably. But unfortunately for us, in the Black community, that hasn't been the case. And so for you as a relationship coach, what is some of your advice when you give to, let's say, new couples, whether they are just significant others, whether they just really recently got married? What are some of those tips and advices that you give them when it comes to providing some insight on how a healthy dynamic of a family looks like?
Well, first, everyone needs to, when you're dating and you're deciding, hey, we're going to be together, find what each one of you is strongest at. Like, I know that I was strongest at, I can't say accounting, but the bill paying.
Okay.
I'm a great saver. I have a strategic plan of how I pay the bills. Like, I pay bills in advance sometimes. That's my thing. I'm never late on anything. If I am, something has completely gone awry. But like, I've never in my life been late on a car payment, never been late on mortgage, rent, or anything like that. So I took over that aspect of for us paying the bills. And he takes over other household things. If something mechanical breaks, he's responsible for those type of things. Now, if we need to purchase, like we just purchased a new AC unit, so we looked at the best options between the both of us, but he made the ultimate decision of what we were going to do. So you have to know who is better suited for what. Absolutely. And then that's their responsibility, and then you can come together at whatever it is, at whatever point. But the communication has to be there also. So you can't have somebody that's just a renegade, doing whatever. Especially, I'm going to tell you something that's very important. In my first marriage, I did everything. Like, I made all the decisions, where we were going to go on vacation, almost like what we were going to eat. I paid the bills and everything. He brought home his check. I worked still, but I was working, 2 jobs at one time. And, he was indecisive about, what else he was going to do to have another income coming in. But me making all the decision, I was like burnt out. Absolutely. It was like raising another child.
Yeah.
And we couldn't, he didn't want to sit down and talk about anything. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. So having someone now that we can talk to each other. Mm-hmm. When I came into this, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to make a decision on anything. You just, wherever you want to take me for dinner is fine. Wherever you want to go on vacation is fine. and I know.
Yeah. And most of the time, and most of the time, too, no offense, but most of the time, the indecisive person is usually the wife, right? She's, I don't know, which one are you? Well, I don't know. I don't really have a taste for anything. As soon as you mention something, it's like, no, I don't want that. But you just said you didn't know what you wanted. Now you say you don't want that.
But I'm easy to please, considering my first marriage, because I made all the decisions. I felt like I was the man in the relationship, doing everything, and I was just so burnt out of that. Like, I just couldn't do it anymore. And now having someone that we can talk about very important decision-making things, even down to, the kids and, who's going to do what and go where and things like that. It's very, very important that you have someone even to bounce ideas of career and everything off of. It's extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you would understand though that that motivation comes from just merely communicating with your significant other, right? So you never know what you're inspired to do until you have that open dialogue with your
Yes.
spouse about, okay, well, what is it you want to do? What do you enjoy doing versus what you actually are very good at? And so okay, well, I have this idea. Let's collaborate and brainstorm and put this thing together to see how you can, bring this thing into fruition. But that comes to the mere fact of just merely communicating. And communication, oftentimes you oftentimes do have that imbalance when it comes to your Black families, where one person is over communicating and the other person is under. It's just
That's
like
true.
that person don't want to communicate much at all because he's not much of a talker, or she's not much of
Right.
a talker versus the other person is very talkative. And it's like, okay, well, somebody at some point in time got to meet each other at that median point to where it balances things out. Otherwise, there's going to be so many things unsaid that should have been said years ago, and so many things that shouldn't have been said being said right then in the forefront. So again, that imbalance has to happen. It's going to take those two. And so you personally, the fact that you witnessed that in your first marriage, where you did everything and it drained you, right? So that
Oh my gosh,
communication
yes.
piece was the first point. That's one of the things that I'm taking from just your conversation now, that communication will be one of those top priorities when it comes to a healthy and sustainable relationship, and just the dynamic in general when it comes to the family as well, because you have to also communicate with the children and reciprocate the communication too with them. So they have to be the ones talking at times and you have to be the ones listening and vice versa. But when it comes to now that you mentioned the communication piece, I want to get to the nurturing piece, because that's another very essential thing when it comes to a healthy dynamic within the Black family. In your personal experience as a relationship coach, how has it been when it comes to it being one-sided, with one person being a loving and nurturing person versus the other person kind of being shut down or shut away and just, oh, I show my love through action. I don't have to tell you I love you type thing. That happens too often in the Black community too. So from your experience, what has that been like?
You know, that that can be a difficult piece. Um, that comes from really knowing your mate. And the only way you're going to know your mate is one, either through communication or to therapy. And it's more than knowing their love language. It's like really truly knowing your mate and knowing what they've been through, knowing their past, knowing their triggers. Um, you really deeply have to know them. So one person's love language could be touch, and that's fine that your mate likes touch, and you may not be the touchy-feely type.
Yeah,
So that then you're not able to give your mate what they want or what they need.
hmm
But your love language may be giving and something else. So it's really it's a difficult thing. It's a
absolutely.
difficult thing.
Yeah,
It really is, because you're not giving what that person needs, but you're showing your love and affection in a whole nother way.
absolutely. And I do feel like we sometimes ignore the early signs when first establishing that relationship with that person, right? So everyone has a tolerance level. I've
Mhm.
always, the older I get, the more I realize that, in relationships, there are a level of things that you can tolerate, and some things that's just deal breakers. Like off the bat, I can't tolerate this because of, and it could be circumstantial based on the things that you experience in your life as an individual, as a child, with your own parents, or even in other previous relationships too. It's like, you know what? That relationship taught me this lesson, and I'm not going to accept anything less than this coming to a new relationship, right? So, but for that nurturing piece to be so intricate, so important, that too often we ignore that, thinking we're going to the relationship. I'm going to change this person. I'm going to give this person this version of me to make them want to basically bend to my will, so to speak. When in all actuality, what you're doing is you're compromising yourself by trying to change this person, when if that person doesn't have it in them to change that particular aspect of them, then you just pretty much you're beating a dead horse. Now you can't really fault that person for not changing when you were trying to push the initiative to change them in that area, versus just merely stating early on, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and then being upfront, and that person being upfront with you as well. And then you take it from there on whether or not you want to, move forward in that relationship, or whether or not it's just something that's going to be short term. But too many signs, especially in the Black family, in the Black relationship aspect, we ignore too many things, thinking we can come in and change people. What has that been like for you as well as a relationship coach? Just speaking to people on average when they have that mindset, or have you experienced people with that mindset?
A lot of us, a lot of people just want to be in a relationship, and they ignore a lot of the signs going in, because they just want to be. They just want to be. They just want to be.
The idea of a relationship.
The idea of a relationship.
Who you're actually with. Yeah.
And no matter whether you're dating and it's dating seriously, or no matter if you're married, the relationship, or a good relationship, is a lot of work, and it's very hard work to maintain, to keep that person, happy, to keep yourself happy, because you have to be happy as well. Absolutely. And in every relationship, there comes a time when you're like, I'm not sure, but I'm sure.
You're sure about being unsure. That's
yeah. But you want to make it work. But if you don't have that open line of communication, and if you're not happy also within yourself, you have to be good with yourself. Absolutely. Like I said, if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else.
That's facts.
It's a lot of work.
It is. And part of the reason that, and I've always said this, you're absolutely right about that, but I've always said too, we as individuals oftentimes make simple things complicated.
We do.
And it's based on our own selfish faults too, right? So it's like, we know what we want things to go our way all the time, versus being able to come to a compromising state with the other person, saying, okay, I'm willing to meet you here if you're willing to meet me there. So, but that's what it comes down to. Relationships is about compromise. It's about understanding each other's sides from all different facets of that relationship. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're basically saying to that other person, well, no matter how you feel about this, I'm going to be this way or do this. And it's like, okay, you're not taking into account what that person's thoughts and feelings are about that. And that causes bigger issues too. But now I want to transition to this particular aspect about the relationship. So I'm very controversial in this particular aspect when it comes to this. So I've been on record saying that we as individuals, whenever we find a mate, someone to be with, right? I feel as if though we take being a parent too lightly, or who we mate with entirely too lightly. That's very important. If you're not willing to say to yourself, having my child is not a privilege. It is a privilege, it's not a right. No one's entitled to have my child, right? So if I don't love you enough to be with you, why would I want to bless you with having a child? And too oftentimes we see, especially in modern day time in our Black communities, more people, more times than not, would rather be parents than spouses. It's like, okay, well, shouldn't the two things work interchangeably together? Or am I missing something, Nicole, here? Help me understand. So should being a mother and a wife go hand in hand, just like being a husband and a father?
They should. I completely agree with you. They definitely should go together. But in this society, they're definitely not.
Yeah.
It's much easier to have the child and go about your merry way and just co-parent.
How was that working out?
And
In our community? How is
I
that
tell
working?
you, that is not working out at all.
I figured that.
I'll tell you, I am in the middle of a movie from hell with my son and the mother of his child. It is the movie, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even imagine them getting married. That would be times two, part two. That would be a horror movie.
Yeah, that the sequel is generally always the best or the worst, depending on how you look at
Right.
it.
Right. So, I don't understand. I don't understand if some people are purposely, well, maybe I don't know. I'll tell you, my first child, I did not marry the father. We were dating. Yes, we were seriously dating. And I did not know that I was pregnant until I was almost 4 months. And I had to go the same day to get the sonogram because I didn't believe the doctor when he told me.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like that. So it was not planned at all. It was just a fluke.
Yeah.
So it was one of those type of situations. We tried to make it work and it just didn't. It was better for us to be apart.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, and that's fair, right? Sometimes things just don't work out and it's
Right.
okay. But as the adults, you want to be able to get to that respect level where, okay, we can respectfully agree to co-parent, take care of our child, prioritize him or her or them as the number one priority in this particular situation that obviously came about through our interaction with each other. But us being together just didn't work out. But you see it more times than not, though, in situations where people are purposely going out just to want to mate, just going out just purposely with the intent to just, I just want to have a child and they can go on about their business. But without understanding how that trickles down and affects the child. But you sit up here, I feel like people who make selfish decisions like that don't take into account what the effects will be on that child, where you're purposely out to try to be a single parent versus having that healthy relationship established between that mother and that father, to where they understand each other and they help the child understand them as well. That has to be more. We have to make that much more normalized than the idea of just, okay, I'm just going to have a child or have a bunch of kids by a bunch of men or by a bunch of women, and then one, not be able to take care of all. Because when you're having a child, you have to understand what comes along with that. All the responsibilities of keeping up with that child, with the child's other side of the child's family, keeping up with your own side of the family, keeping up with who they're always around on an everyday basis, things like that. And the more children that you have, the less of yourself you're able to give them. And
that is so true.
This unconscious decision that you're making without impulse to just have a multitude of children around, scattered all over the place. We have to stop normalizing it, because that's not healthy.
I agree with that. So the issue that I have is, like as you said, is just having the children and not having any type of relationship with the father or the mother or whomever. So the child doesn't know who the father is or the other parent. But then if you're having child by, so many people, and if you yourself or you and the father can't fund or take care of the child. And then you're expecting the state to take care of the child. It's fine that you have the child and you're taking care of the child.
Absolutely.
So if you choose to have the child, you should be able to take care of the child. Don't expect for the state. So don't collect the check from the state and expect everyone around you to take care of your child. You have a child, you go to work, you take care of the child. That's how it should be. Because back in the day, that's how it happened. Wasn't nobody collecting no state check and things like that. You got up, you worked, somebody worked in the house, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and they took care of the children. Don't keep having all these kids and you can't take care of it.
Yep. That again, that's bringing them into an already struggled situation, right? So given the situations that have recently happened with Roe versus Wade being overturned, obviously women being given the right to choose, and it's been that way for 50 years now, and now they overturn that. Now you're sitting up here taking away their rights and giving the states the rights to make those decisions for you. I've always been on the side of, okay, I'm pro circumstances. When you yourself are in a struggling situation and you don't have the means, you don't have the emotions, you don't have the mental capacity to take care of a child, bring a child to this world, right now ain't the time to be having a child right now. It's not. And so to still intentionally be selfish in that way and have them anyway, bringing them into an already struggling situation without any foundation, any support system in place, that's very selfish, because now you're bringing a child into a world, into a struggling world where they're going to already resent you growing up because of their upbringing, because of what you haven't been able to provide for them. And it's already been put in place that you're not going to be able to provide this for them because you haven't even provided this for yourself yet. So those type of things obviously play a big part in when it comes to the healthy dynamic of the family too. So one thing I also want to also ask you about. So there was this.
So before you go on to that, so
yeah,
in my opinion, with the Roe versus Wade,
yeah,
they should mind their damn business.
Mind their business.
Because no one should be able to tell a woman or anyone what they can do or what they can't do with their body. Because what this is going to create is a whole bunch of mental health situations. You're going to have that's those scenarios from back in the day with these women with I'm not even going to put it out there what they're going to do, but it's going to be bad, because if someone does not want something, they're going to find a way to get rid of it. And it's just going to be detrimental for the individual. And if they do have it, then you're going to have a whole lot more mental health situations, because they're going to resent the child. They're going to leave them on the doorsteps. They're going to put them in dumpsters. The same stuff that's going on now. And no one is going to suffer more than the child. And that's what's going to happen.
Again, it's a domino effect to everything, right? So we have to operate with this assumption that we know we're going to be disproportionately affected by every single thing that happens in this country, in this world, rather. So it's those types of things have to be taken into account. And so which leads me to my other question about this. So this video went viral of this woman basically trying to put her child's father on blast, which it turned out to be, I guess it turned out to be a prank. Well, it turned out to be some type of parody, if you will, where the man came and brought his child food to eat, while she had 3 other children by 3 other men, and she was basically forcing him to be obligated to buy the other children some food when he was just merely taking care of his responsibilities for his one child, versus her, pressing the other men who are fathers to the other children to do the same thing. But it's so many layers to that onion that has to get peeled back, right? So one of those things is, for one, I personally, as a man, as a father, I don't feel like he should be obligated to actually do that. But if he does it out of the kindness of his heart, then that's a good man. I commend him for doing that, because not every man is going to do that. But unfortunately for us as Black people, and recent study has shown this, that our race is more known for taking care of other men's children than any other race in this country. That's very, very daunting and unfortunate for us. But with that being said, seeing the situation unfold, whether it was true or not, but understanding that this is indeed a reality for us in our Black community more times than not. The fact that he decided to only buy one child, which was his biologically, food, and the other ones didn't get to eat the same exact thing or at all at the time, which was rather unfair, because now these children in general, whether it's his or not, they're all being affected and impacted by these adult decisions, which is going to obviously make them resent the adults as well as their other siblings. So it's like, man, well, your father did this for you, and my father ain't do nothing for me because I ain't seen mine. So it's like, okay, it's one thing that you're together and you buying food for all the children, rightfully so. But if you're not together, I can understand where he's coming from with only wanting to provide for just his child.
Right.
But as a decent man that I am, I'll buy food for all the children, whether I'm with the mother or not. But I understand his premise as to why he wants to just prioritize just his child and only his child at that given moment in time. Having said that, how many times have you seen these type of situations happen when there are other kids by other fathers, and this mother's trying to make this one father of this one child be the sole responsible person for all the other children? How unhealthy is that?
So I'm gonna go even deeper than that. So that was, I
Please
think,
do.
so I think my husband showed me that video. Somebody showed me that video.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. But so let me go 10 times more than that.
All right.
Someone has they have 2 or 3 kids.
I think she had 3 or 4. Yeah.
So someone else I know has 3 children.
Okay.
One of the fathers put the child in a private school. The other 2 children are in public school. So one is getting great education.
Yep.
The other 2 are not. So that goes far beyond eating. You see? So this goes back to when I chose to have, when I was married, my ex-husband begged me to have a child. And I was like, I don't know, because he wasn't very responsible, because I said that I took care of everything.
There you go.
I said, okay. I said it. He didn't put a gun to my head.
Yeah.
I said, I'll have your child.
Mm-hmm.
We were married when he was born. I did it. When we divorced or when we got separated, when he left, I had to, quote unquote, man up. This is my responsibility now. Yeah. Come hell or high water, I have to provide if he does not. As a woman, as his mother, he is my responsibility. So if I had had 10 more kids, they are my responsibility. So if I had to get 10, 20 jobs to make sure that each one of my kids has shoes on their feet to match the other ones, that's what I needed to do.
Absolutely.
My first son's father provided shoes, clothes, everything for my oldest son. I had to make sure that my youngest son didn't feel less than because his father didn't do shit. Yeah. So I had to make sure that he didn't go without.
Absolutely.
That's that mother's responsibility. Because then if no one put a gun to her head, you need to step up to the plate and you need to find the means to make sure that your kids, if they're living with you, if that means you got to take somebody to court to get that child support, yep, If that means that you got to work another job, if that means that you need to move in a roommate, if that means that you need to run out your car, whatever that means, to make sure that your kids don't feel a certain type of way about the other one, that's what I feel that you need to do, because there will be some sort of resentment against them kids, at least one of them.
Yeah.
And you don't want to divide between your kids.
Absolutely. And it should never be that way, because
Right.
if one child is doing better than the other children, if you all are growing up in the same household, then yeah,
Right.
it's gonna be more than just resentment. It's gonna be a lot of fights you have to break up, a lot of arguments, and then that friction grows as they get older. Now it's like, well, I can't wait to leave the house, and I'm gone now, and now you're gone. Now you're not even talking to each other anymore. So those things stem from when you were growing up, and it's like
Yeah.
the parents don't understand the magnitude of which the role they played in that particular friction happening in the beginning. So it's like you didn't step in to make sure that these different things didn't happen around them, to where they would live in the same healthy lifestyle, same dynamic within that Black family. That has to be spoken up for much more times than not, and it's not being. And so, and when I saw that video, it was alarming to me. One, that I'm thinking to myself, hey, why won't this woman, first off, why don't you have money to
Right.
take care of these children, or to feed the children at the very least, at that very moment in time? What were you not doing to pre-plan for situations like this? Even, and she said something about not having us food stamps or something like that. So, okay, this is another poverty mindset that we're having. We're living off impulse, living on survival tactics alone. We're just trying to make it to the next day rather than making it to the next year and years after, right? We're not thinking long term. We're thinking short term. How we just going to survive today? The fact that she didn't even have money in place to even have for each of them to eat equally to begin with, even before reaching out to that one father. That's one thing. Two, why are you not reaching out to the other fathers? You forget that they have been fathered by other men.
That's right. You gotta hold
So
them
they don't have
accountable.
responsibility.
You gotta hold them accountable.
Accountability. This is something that my wife and I oftentimes touch on. We have these conversations. She told me that in the Black community, we lack compassion. I say, no, we lack accountability. It's to be held accountable for things that we know to be true or false, or know to be right or wrong. And we don't want to, in your words, we don't want to man up and own up to those things that we are responsible for, which again trickles down, and it makes a bad situation even worse. And it keeps growing, and it keeps getting passed down from generations on in. And we're wondering, well, where the hell did this even start? Now you forgot where you first dropped the ball. Ball has been dropped too many times, and we have to maintain that responsibility levels where everyone understands what their roles are, and be able to hold themselves accountable as well as hold each other accountable in order to sustain a healthy lifestyle and a healthy relationship within the Black family. That has to be the case. So seeing that video, for me, I was
Right.
taken
I
back
don't
at how she
know,
felt like
you
it
know,
was
I
his
don't know
one obligation.
if she put it out there or who put it out there,
Well,
but
she put it out there, and then she rebutted and said that everybody's making me out to be the bad person. When we were together, he was doing this and that for the kids, and now we ain't together no more. He's not. It's like, well, maybe he at the time, maybe he couldn't afford to buy the other kids food, right? Obviously, food don't cost that damn much to sit up here and just buy one pizza for all the kids to eat. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, he shouldn't feel obligated to have to
right,
do that. He
right,
should be able to just be given the choice of doing it out of the goodness of his heart. He shouldn't be
exactly,
forced to do that. Because
right,
again,
and nor should she expect him to do that.
and if you expect that out of him, you better be expecting that out of everybody else too. Out of the other fathers that you father children with, you better be expecting that out of them too. Don't expect it out of one and not the other three. That's not fair.
Right.
But and that the
If the
first thing that
kids
came to
living
mind
with,
was, yeah,
if the kids living with her, she need to be feeding them.
exactly. The first thing that came to mind when I saw that video, I was like, see, this is why picking and choosing the right mate to have a child with is more critical than anything. We take it too lightly. We sit here and just again, and this is not everybody's situation, and I understand that, but the vast majority in our Black community, we have to be real about this. We're too freely when it comes, we're thinking too freely and too irresponsibly when it comes to just out here just having sex for procreational purposes. Now it's like, now you not even have protected sex. You out here being irresponsible with it, knowing you're gonna get pregnant. Now you got another child. You already had two other children. Well, yeah, you already saw that you couldn't take care of one child. What made you think that the situation is gonna change after having another child? You thought it was gonna change for the better? It just made a difficult situation damn near impossible for you now. See, we got to take these things into account. And a lot of times on social media, I get scolded for saying that. It's like, well, I don't have to be somebody's wife and be somebody's mother, and I shouldn't have to. You know, marriage is a piece of paper. Okay, all right, you feel that way. Well, why won't you feel such a way that you understand the importance of being a parent? First and foremost, I'm on the fence and saying everybody ain't meant to be a damn parent. Let's be real about that.
Got that right.
Everybody ain't
That
got the mental capacity, don't have the emotional capacity. Everybody don't have the financial stability to be able to do these things. And sometimes in life, it ain't just about having the child at all. It's about the time in which you do it. Right now may not be the best time for you to be doing this. We have to be able to be real with ourselves and be real with each other, right? So some of these things that happen in our Black communities are self-inflicted. And that's when that accountability piece has to come to play. It has to. So switching to more specifically the blended family thing, which is what you specialize in, I want to ask you this question, because we touched a little bit on it when it comes to taking care of other people's children, right? So too often times we see where, you know, a man and woman get together, have a child, and then that man and woman break up, or not together anymore. Now another man or another woman comes into play. And now, so that's a blended family now. So now that man or that woman has a child by somebody else, but they're currently with another person. The other person may or may not have their own child as well with somebody else. But if they don't, then they're being asked to be somewhat of a stepmom or stepdad. How does that dynamic, how does that work? Within your experience and your perspective, how does that dynamic work when it comes to that blended family structure?
You know, sometimes it can go good, sometimes it can go bad. It really all depends on, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on the age of the kids.
Yeah.
It depends on your previous relationships, whether it be, you know, your marriage or your previous dating relationship. It really depends on a lot of that. If you have a toxic relationship previously, then expect for some of that to definitely spill over into your, you know, your new marriage, and carry some baggage and definitely interfere with some things. And you have to be prepared.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did an episode on masculine and feminine toxicity that exists in the Black community.
Yeah.
We touched on that. One of my previous guests, she was speaking just nothing but facts when it came to a Black woman's perspective on how to hold Black women accountable. I won't even touch on that, but I'll let you check that episode out. Tell me what you think about that, because the things that she was saying, I know as a Black man, I couldn't get away with saying, because I'll get scolded, I get cremated, I get canceled for it. But because she's a Black woman speaking on behalf of Black women, I say, speak your truth, Queen. Speak your truth. But to say that blended family aspect, it is a very difficult situation to have to come into, right? So your point is multifaceted. A lot of these issues that we deal with is multifaceted. There's no one issue to that problem, right? It's like, okay, depending on the age of the child, depending on where in life the two adults are, being able to, whoever that child's mother or father is, they have to be the one that establishes that respect and boundary level with that significant other who's coming into play. Now that mother and that child were, when were together in a previous relationship and now they're in a new one, or whether that father and that child was in a previous relationship and now they're in a new one. So now it has to be, okay, I'm going to allow this person to come into my personal space, meet my child. They obviously love and care about me. So and they have to love and care about what comes with me, right? So with that in mind, that established respect level has to be established and created from the jump. And if it's not, obviously things happen, thereafter where there's some disagreements, there's some, discrepancies here and there, but it has to be addressed in a more respectful way. Otherwise, it's going to continuously be a situation where that mother or that father is in cahoots with the significant other because the child don't like or disagrees with something that the other person is doing or not doing. And it's like, okay, now this triangle, if you will, it's now going to become just a line. If this one particular person don't understand that, okay, I have to respect what comes with you and love you also along with them. And if I don't, then I don't need to be in this situation at all, because too oftentimes, like I said, we're put in situations in the Black community to have to raise other people's children, whether we have children of our own or not. But if we have children of our own, that should give us a leg up on how to address certain issues with other people's children, because we know how to address things with our own. But it's establishing a respect level with that adult and saying, okay, we have to hold ourselves accountable first. These kids are only going to do what we do or say what we say. If they don't, if we're not being the examples for them, how can we even possibly say we're examples to them at all as parents? And so for me, yeah.
I want to break this down as simple as possible, what I see. And, I'm going to use some of my own experience that, I'm really tired of seeing this and I'm sure it goes on in other communities, but I'm going to speak about it in the Black community because this is what I see and what I work with the most. And it happened to me is you have a couple that breaks up. Then you have, and this breakup has been going on for God knows how long. So the couple has been unhappy. The relationship has been toxic for years.
Yeah.
Okay, so the shit was over a long time ago. Okay, yeah. Both of them knew that the relationship was over a long time ago. Okay, so both male and female have been done, probably seeing other people in most cases. So it's over, done, cahoots, all of that stuff. Okay, so it's finally over. Divorce comes, all right? They go their separate ways, seeing other people, and then they both, or one, finds someone else, gets married, okay? And now their kids are with this new, let's use the woman. They're with a new woman. So their ex-husband is now with a new woman. Now, this ex-wife is crying the blues now. Now, the shit been over for God knows how long, but she's crying the blues to her kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So why in God's name are you crying to a kid? Why are you complaining to a child?
Yeah.
Go get your girlfriend. Go get your Aunt Judy. Go get your mama and complain to them.
Yeah.
Don't do it to your child. Don't tell your child all your business about their daddy.
Yeah.
Stop
that
doing that.
Them. Yep.
Stop doing that, because now your child has to take sides.
Yep.
It's okay that your feelings hurt. Yep. You have feelings too. Understood.
Absolutely.
But don't pull the middle person in, which is that child. They don't deserve that because you want them to pick a side. Now, how immature, how disrespectful is that? Stop it. Absolutely. Because now you've created a wedge in a relationship. And that's probably what you want anyway. When you're trying to hurt the new wife, well, you ain't hurting her. you hurting your child because
Yep.
you creating something inside that this child has to now dislike daddy because now mommy's crying.
And have to dislike his new wife now.
Yeah.
For
Who ain't
no
done nothing,
legitimate reason at all.
has done nothing to the child. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
So now it's all this toxicity going on in this child's head because you done created it, because you hurt. For what? The relationship was over a long time ago.
Yeah.
What, you mad because you ain't getting no bags no more? Your rent paid? What? What is it? What is the problem?
Yeah.
You knew it was gone. When
Yep.
he wasn't coming home, or he wasn't doing whatever, y'all wasn't going to the movies or whatever, or when you were seeing whomever, like what? Like, my problem is don't bring your child in it.
Absolutely.
That is my problem.
Yeah.
Don't include your children. Go talk to somebody else. Get a therapist. Because you are hurting these kids very, very badly.
Yeah, basically, you hit the nail on the head when you said that. It's contaminating the child's mind into thinking that, okay, my dad is this person. He's not all I thought he was, versus what he has been to you is different from what he has been to your mom.
Right.
And your mother has no right, or even the father in some cases too, you have no right to contaminate that child's mind.
And if it's happening the other way around, don't do that. Parents, stop doing that. Stop involving your kids in grown-up stuff.
It's a very unhealthy trait and behavior.
And it's going on all the time. It happened to me. It's going on all the time.
It happened to me as well as a child. And obviously, seeing the things that my mom spoke about when it came to my father, I saw the things she was saying. Some of the things was way over my head at the time. It was like I didn't fully understand. As a child, I'm not supposed to be understanding all of this shit right now. Like I'm trying to be a kid, but yet I'm being forced to be put in adult situations that it has something to do with me, but it's nothing that I can do about it because I'm a child. I'm not an adult. I'm not the adult making the adult decisions. And too many times we ask our kids to make adult decisions, which is creating such an unhealthy trait when it comes to that Black family structure. Is children need to know that they are children. They are not to be put in adult situations about taking care of bills, raising other siblings. You can help out with your other siblings, obviously if you're the oldest one, but you're not that sibling's parent.
That's right.
You can't do that. And we've had that happen too many times.
They shouldn't be constantly expected to watch their sibling. When I went to grad school, I sent my youngest son to my mother because it wasn't my oldest, and there's 6 years difference. It wasn't his responsibility to watch him.
Absolutely.
While I was in school. It was just too big of a responsibility.
Too big.
He's still a kid. I'm not gonna make him an adult.
Yeah.
And I understand some people don't have that, and that's understood. But if you have someone, don't put that burden on your children.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not one to believe that no one has that at all, because you have other family members, you have close friends, you have people to reach out to in church and things like that. So establishing those relationships with people is very essential to how
it's very important
how our community is going to continuously grow for the better. It has to be.
And another thing is that, I know it's a lot of single parents, because like I said, I was one of them. Another thing I never did, and this is something my mother also never did, because she was a single parent. She never talked bad about my father to me. I never talked bad about my ex-husband to my son. I figured the shit that he wasn't doing, that he said he was going to do, my son would eventually see who he is.
Now, once he comes in and asks you questions about it, then you can obviously kind of gradually give him that information, and that's fine. But you got to meet your child where they're at mentally when it comes to dispersing that type of information, that type of reality to them. You can't just pounce all this information and shit on them early on. It's like, whoa, I wasn't ready for all of
I
that.
didn't call him the deadbeat
Yeah,
dad. I
yeah,
didn't call him the no good nigga. I
yeah,
didn't do
yeah.
any of that stuff. And I didn't do any of that stuff in front of him. If I talked about him, I made sure that he wasn't nowhere around, nowhere in earshot of me or
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I can't wait for the day that he see him for who he is. He ain't shit.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
can't wait for it. Now
Yep.
he is 20, he'll be 21 on, he saw it probably when he was like 16. I was like, yes. I was like, I didn't have to
It's
say
like,
a word,
exactly. See,
not
and that's
one
the thing.
word.
Let that opportunity come,
That's
because it's
right.
going to come. And it's unfortunate that it's going to come, but the
Yes.
reality is when it does, and they see it for themselves, now they
Mm-hmm.
can come to you and say, yeah, he did that.
He was like, Mom, he didn't show up again. He said he was going to do this. I said, really? Oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I was really sincere because I hated that he was disappointing him like that, because that means that I had to, really step up. And if I couldn't do something that I said I was going to do, I made sure that I communicated that.
Absolutely.
I made sure, because the other parent was letting him down constantly.
Yeah. And you know what, the top of all of this, so this topic specifically when it comes to, like I said, the healthy dynamic of the Black family and Black relationship, a lot of these issues are socioeconomic. A lot of them are, if not all of them are. It starts with that, right? So you don't have the means, you don't have the resources, you don't have the funds, you're not making enough money to do these things. A lot of these issues are financially based. And it's unfortunate that it is that way. So, but for those who actually do have the means, some people do have the means, just don't have the mental capacity or the emotional. They're not equipped with the emotional capacity to be able to nurture and love and be able to have those type of relationships with their kids and with their spouses and things of that nature. So most of those things happen too often where it's a long period of time where that's not even being spoken of. So now more and more shit is piling onto this, and now someone's gasket is about to blow. So now we've got to this place where, okay, someone is fed up. Someone has done something just crazy and outlandish because they have let this thing just pile up for so long without even addressing it. And then not necessarily just addressing it in a very healthy and organic way to where no one is blowing up and reacting irrationally and things like that. But too many irrational decisions get made by someone who's not thinking rationally, and that's when things like this come into fold. So again, Nicole, I thank you so much for having this conversation with me about this. I look forward to many more of these conversations too, because it needs to be had and the awareness needs to be brought out that we have to start prioritizing and normalizing healthier relationships and healthier family structures within our Black community, because that's what's going to be essential to the growth and the development of our children and their children and moving forward. We have to be the change that we want to see in our Black community. And it starts with us at home. It starts at home. Those moral values have to be bestowed upon us and upon our children thereafter. So that way the blind is not leading the blind any damn more. We can't keep running into the same damn wall because I can't teach you something that I ain't been taught. And for us that haven't been taught it, but we've sustained or even established a family of our own, we have to start prioritizing going to therapy to unpack these issues that we're dealing with internally. That happened to us at a younger age, right? So again, I'm always always talking about this and advocating about this on my show. When it comes to my millennial generation, the one thing that I'm very proud of as a millennial is to see us unpacking and breaking those generational curses. We're seeing that the very things that we experience as kids, we're making sure we prioritize the fact that our kids will never experience the things that we experience in our lives, where having to go without meals, having to go with lights being off, having to go with shoes, or just the necessities in general when it comes to being children and letting our children be children and maintaining that innocence of a child to where they're not having to care in the world. They don't have to worry about paying no bills because we grown ass people are taking care of this shit ourselves, and rightfully so. And so seeing more of that, I'm very much so thrilled, and I'm always promoting and highlighting and acknowledging my millennial generation to see that, because the generation under us, I'm very concerned about. And I want to make sure I'm leading by example with my own kids and being able to show them, okay, this is what a man looks like. This is what a man's supposed to take care of. This is what your mom looks like. It's what a woman's supposed to take care of. And this is how we balance each other out. This is how we bring that camaraderie, that partnership together, and forming that healthy, organic relationship that you all can mimic and idolize, and hopefully be able to, form yourselves when you are in positions to have a family of your own, right? So it's very essential, it's very important that we continuously push the envelope to sustaining healthy relationships and dynamic in our Black community. And that also means reaching out more to our community leaders and just community in general, because if we don't, we're going to keep having these situations happen where so many of our kids are getting lost into the streets, into the graves, into the prison systems. And we're losing too many of them.
That's true.
I've been on the fence always saying that Black people as a whole, we're fighting too many damn fights to go, and we ain't winning one of them. I can't keep fighting myself, fighting you, and fighting the system too. That's too many fights. We have to center our attention on one specific fight and fight to the very end until that fight is won. Otherwise, we're going to continuously having to fight for something.
Right.
So, again, thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are listening, and those of you who just listen to the episodes and aren't subscribed yet, again, I'm urging you all to please subscribe to this podcast, because we're talking about real time relationships, real time situations that we're dealing with in the Black community. And this is very important information that's being given out to those people who look just like us, who are in the same positions in some cases than we are. And we're learning from each other by passing off very helpful and valuable information to each other. So again, be sure to like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. You don't want to miss the information and the context and the content that's being dispersed on this show, because this is truly for us. This is truly the podcast for the culture. Again, Nicole, I'll be reaching out to you again soon to have you on the show again to talk more about in depth as it pertains to just specifically just relationships. As a relationship coach, I want to help understand how do hurt people who keep hurting people, if that makes any sense. Because I want to be able to bridge that gap between the Black man and Black woman, with realizing and understanding that Black woman, Black queen, I'm not your enemy. And Black man, I'm not your enemy. You're not my enemy. So I want to have you on again on the show soon to talk about that. And just let me know what your schedule is like, and we'll definitely make that happen again.
Okay, that sounds good.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And we'll be talking.
Pleasure.
If you like what you've heard from this week's episode and would like to hear more from previous episodes, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel below. You can also find me on social media platforms at Speak to the Mic _podcast show on Instagram and Speak to the Mic podcast show on Facebook. Be sure to also like, share, and subscribe to my Spotify page at Speak to the Mic podcast show. As I put out more thought-provoking content, your opinion and thoughts are needed and appreciated. I thank you all in advance for your support and look forward to hearing from you soon.